Well, I've sort of followed the CSM process on and off since you guys first put it in. There's some great documentaries about it on English TV, obviously newspaper articles and things, and I did vote. I was really interested in the fact that, you know, there was something like this, massive sandbox game, and then you're basically giving us our own spaceship politicians. Like, yeah, what's not to like about that? It's a great addition. So, you know, on and off I've watched the process. I've not necessarily been happy with some of the CSMs in the past, or some of the things that have happened as a result of CSM interaction with CCP and vice versa. But overall, I have enjoyed the fact that EVE has something like that.
The original idea was that the CSM would perform to a significant extent the function that Internal Affairs does now, but really, like, a bit of hindsight and a moment of thought would have revealed that that was never going to be a very good idea. Yes, EVE players, we can certainly trust them to judge each other's security violations. No bad outcome could possibly arise from this. Whereas the new thing, which is basically getting dedicated EVE players to talk about EVE and their ideas for EVE and what's wrong with EVE, has proved to be remarkably effective and gets lots of volunteers to come to a very weather-rich country, even in January, to do so.
It's like a second job, to be honest, and you don't get paid. Or someone referred to it as the most expensive free trip to Iceland. But yeah, you have to have a lot of time, and there's always something going on CSM. If you have the time, you could probably do it like all the time without sleep. You just have to want, and you have to have the will to do it. So if anyone is planning on running for CSM, those people have to understand that it's going to be time commitment. It's not going to be just, you know, I'm super important person in video online game.
We have a lot of people in the CSM that represent nullsec, the nullsec, like half of them, approximately 5, 6. And of course, we're from different alliances, and we're in the game, we're usually hostile to each other. But generally, we all think that nullsec needs improvement. That's where we all agree on. And often it's easy when it's general things that would improve all alliances. Sometimes it can get a little bit of a fight. It's very popular right now with the big war that's happening right now. And there's stuff like drone assist and the carriers we use and all that. And that's where the opinions often go a bit different. And yeah, so it's most often it's easy to agree on the same thing, but sometimes we clash from each other.
It's impressive how open CCP is and how willing they are to get our opinion. I mean, I've been following it. I've known that the CSM has made great headway. The CSMs before us, they've done a lot of great work. And it was really great to get in there and actually see that it's not just PR. It is real. They are really listening to us. They are really taking our opinion, and they really care and want to do what the players want to do. So that was my instant first reaction after a couple of weeks. It was really nice, and it's been like that the whole way through.
I mean, there's always going to be times when CCP is ultimately going to go with their best judgment, which is perfectly up to them and is perfectly fine, even if it annoys some people, but I wouldn't call it an isolated incident at all. You know, a lot of these people who feel that CCP doesn't listen to them either have excessively radical ideas, perhaps, or you know, they're just feeling like they want to stamp their feet over whatever. I want my way, damn it.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got a much more realistic view of how the game is developed. It's really opened my eyes in terms of, you know, how the development of the game happens, and that's something that has changed in light of, you know, the controversies of 2011, 2012. John Lander, when he was executive producer of EVE Online, really kind of changed, to put it in Eve terms, changed the meta of how the game is developed. And even though he's moved on to other things, his influence definitely still lives on in terms of how the game is developed. So it was very eye-opening and educational in terms of, how the game that we all love is put together. And I take a lot of valuable experience and knowledge that I've picked up over the last year with me in leaving the CSM.
Well, there are certain teams, there are certain areas that we don't get a lot of input on. And there are times when we've said stuff like, hey, if this happens, there'll probably be problems. It happens, they go through it anyway, and the problems we said go through ended up occurring just like we thought they would. So there are bumps, there are definite, it's not perfect, but from the stories I've heard of people I've known that have been on CSM 3 and CSM 4, CSM 5, it's leaps and bounds better. And of course it's a lot better than the reason they had to create the CSM in the first place, which was before there was nothing.
Well, with the customers, only a very stupid company does not solicit customer feedback for its product. And when you have a product that is largely made by the customers, because people don't play Eve for the incredibly good game mechanics or the compelling PvE or all the rest of it. They play it substantially because of the other players. So we're not just the customer, we're also the product. So yes, it's vital, and it was crazy that they didn't do it sooner, and it's absolutely essential that they continue to do it in the future.
We had one expansion coming out since I'm CSM, Rubicon, and Rubicon had quite some new features where I could help work on like the deployables, some new ships, and that's we're a bit proud of, because then, well, can I say that's what I did, and the others 13 of course as well, and that's a great feeling sometimes.
I think this has been a really important CSM in terms of, each CSM improves on the ones before it, and we've seen particularly CSMs 6 and 7 in terms of the stakeholder process really kind of drive that that influence to a really practical level. But I'm really proud to have been part of this CSM. We've had direct influence on a number of things that are in the game, either as part of the Rubicon expansion or in the upcoming point releases and the summer expansion. And different CSMs have different views of which items that they are. I myself was really thrilled at the warp speed changes and the interceptor changes and kind of the influence that I could have on that process. I thought that was the best improvement to small game PvP put into the game in years, and I was really proud to have been in a position where I could kind of be a part of that process. Let's put it that way.
The STV vote was interesting because I'd always thought the alternate vote was supposed to help people who didn't get their candidates on. And instead it sort of helps the people who not only get their candidates on, but they'll get their second and third and fourth choices on as well. And I mean, it makes sense. At the same time, it does allow the more organized groups to even be more organized now. They had a situation where where it used to be different blocks would get their candidate in. Now you have blocks in the back rooms trading votes. Like if you put your guys on my ballot, I'll put your guys on my ballot, we'll all win, that kind of thing. So I was worried about it at first, but half the CSM is not 0-0 related at all. And they did a great job. This is what's so great about Eve. When the blocks were teaming up, the non-block people started teaming up as well. And you had the bloggers putting out their suggested voting lists, and they were all working together, and that's what's awesome about Eve, is the players will find a way to do it.
STV is massively important. You end up with a much larger array of candidates that all stand a chance of getting on, as long as everyone who votes, and everyone really should vote. The more of you who vote, the more you can get positive changes that suit your play style. You won't be thinking, well, I don't have a voice. STV system allows you to have a voice, and as long as you vote correctly, vote all your options, not just one, not just two, vote 14, 15, whatever number we go with this year, then you know, you have a say on the future of your game?
I don't know. I mean, maybe there are some structural changes they could make. I mean, it is intensely demanding properly being on the CSM. I can very much appreciate why the initial CSM terms were 6 months, but on the other hand, after 6 months, you kind of really only, you know, that's when you're really starting to get things done, and that's when you're starting to see the results. And you want to be in a position to say, well, we suggested this to you in May, now it's November, what happened? You know, or now it's January, and you know, has any work been done? Has a priority been assigned? You know, there's also an argument for continuity. So what it relies on fundamentally are people who are willing to put in a large amount of unpaid work to make the game better for themselves and everyone else. And it tends to consume all your willingness to think and talk about EVE, so you end up playing it less. You know, so you know, after a long session of CSMing, you know what, I don't necessarily log straight back into EVE.
Love for the game is certainly extremely important. Having a kind of vision in your head of what you would like to see the game become is certainly important, although it's not something that you can use to drive kind of a campaign within CCP. CCP has the game designers, and the CSM is not. They are not game designers by any stretch of the imagination. We are first and foremost a focus group where CCP can bring us ideas. We are a good sounding board, and we can provide brief ideas about things that CCP is considering doing. But at the same time, it is important to have kind of a vision of who you represent within the game. So we see CSM delegates who are nullsec delegates. We see CSM delegates who are wormhole focused. We see people like myself who are more small gang focused. So you should definitely have a sense of the type of game that you would like to see. That is important in terms of the campaigning process, and it's important in terms of getting players engaged in the process, because you don't get on the CSM without getting several thousand people who play this game to say, yes, you should your vision of the game matches my vision of the game. I would like to see you out there representing me. So that's probably the most important thing. But with the new voting system, we're also seeing an increased importance in terms of making alliances with other CSM candidates that share your vision. I mean, there were a lot of CSM 8 candidates that I went out and talked to and tried to get their sense of their vision of the game, and the ones that were consistent with mine, I endorsed them, they endorsed me, and that way if I don't get in, perhaps they do, or vice versa. So both of those things I think are very important to anybody who's thinking about running for CSM 9.